Volkswagen is one of the most recognized car brands in the world today. From the adorable Beetle to the iconic VW bus, their cars have won the hearts of millions. But behind this cheerful image lies a story rooted in one of the darkest periods in history, Nazi Germany. Let's rewind to the 1920s and 30s. Germany was struggling. After losing World War I, the country was broke, and inflation was so bad that people burned money because it was cheaper than firewood. Amid this chaos, the Nazi Party rose to power by promising to rebuild Germany and give its people hope. One of Hitler's big dreams was to create the Autobahn, a network of highways across Germany. But there was one problem. Most Germans didn't own cars to drive on them. So Hitler came up with the idea of a people's car, or Volkswagen. In 1934, Hitler enlisted the brilliant car designer Ferdinand Porsche to create a car that was cheap, reliable, and big enough for a family. Porsche got to work, and by 1938, the iconic Volkswagen Beetle was born. The price? 990 Reichsmarks, about what an average worker could afford. To make it easier, the Nazis introduced a savings program. People could pay little by little until they saved enough for their car. Over 300,000 Germans signed up, but none of them ever received their cars. In 1939, World War II broke out, and the Volkswagen factory shifted from producing family cars to manufacturing military vehicles. And when there weren't enough workers, they forced prisoners and foreign workers to toil in the factory under brutal conditions. The factory even had a camp for the children of laborers, but many of them didn't survive due to neglect and malnutrition. By the end of the war, the Volkswagen factory lay in ruins. But in 1945, the British Army took control of the area. A British officer named Ivan Hurst was sent to assess whether the factory could be saved. Amid the rubble, he discovered a Beetle prototype, and an idea began to take shape. Instead of shutting down the factory, Hurst decided to restart production, this time for the British military. Slowly but surely, the factory came back to life. By 1946, they had already produced 10,000 cars. What started as a Nazi project soon became a symbol of Germany's recovery. The Beetle, once associated with Nazi propaganda, transformed into a car that stood for peace and fun. In the 60s, it became the car of choice for the hippie movement in America, a true cultural icon. Volkswagen's rise didn't stop at the Beetle. By the 1970s, the company was expanding its horizons, acquiring other brands like Audi and Seat. Later, luxury names like Bentley and Lamborghini were added to their portfolio. As the years rolled on, Volkswagen's influence continued to spread. By the early 2000s, they were no longer just making cars, they were building an empire. They absorbed Audi, Skoda, Bentley, Lamborghini, and Bugatti, cementing their status as a global powerhouse. But just as it seemed Volkswagen had reached the top of the food chain, the unexpected happened. Enter Porsche, a company with deep, intertwined roots with Volkswagen. Ferdinand Porsche had designed Volkswagen's very first car before World War II, and the two companies had remained closely linked for decades. By 2005, Porsche owned 5% of Volkswagen, and VW's CEO, who was Ferdinand Porsche's grandson, owned 10% of Porsche. It seemed like nothing more than a friendly partnership, but behind closed doors, Porsche had bigger plans. Quietly, Porsche began increasing their stake in Volkswagen, pushing it from 20% to 30%, all the while denying any intention of a takeover. By 2008, Porsche had amassed nearly 43% of Volkswagen stock, with options to buy even more. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The financial crisis of 2008 had sent Volkswagen sales plummeting, and many investors believed the company's stock was massively overvalued. Hedge funds bet heavily against Volkswagen, expecting its price to crash. But Porsche had a trick up its sleeve. In a shocking announcement, Porsche revealed they now controlled nearly 75% of Volkswagen. This triggered panic among investors who had shorted Volkswagen's stock. As they scrambled to buy back shares, the stock price skyrocketed from around 210 euros to over 1,005 euros in just days. For a brief moment, Volkswagen became the most valuable company in the world by market capitalization. But the celebration didn't last long. As quickly as it had risen, the stock price corrected itself. And Porsche wasn't done yet. They were on the verge of fully acquiring Volkswagen, but just as they prepared to cross the finish line, things started to unravel. To secure the final piece of the puzzle, Porsche needed more money and turned to Qatari investors. But just as Porsche thought they had everything in place, The German government intervened and blocked the deal. Porsche found itself in financial trouble. They had borrowed heavily, over $10 billion, to fund the takeover. But without full control of Volkswagen, there was no way to pay back the debt. Investor confidence in Porsche plummeted. Sensing vulnerability, Volkswagen struck back. In 2009, they managed to persuade Porsche's Qatari investors to redirect their money into Volkswagen instead. With that, Volkswagen acquired 49.9% of Porsche, just shy of a majority stake. By 2012, the tables had completely turned. Volkswagen acquired Porsche outright for $4.45 billion, completing a remarkable turnaround. What had begun as a takeover attempt by Porsche ended with Porsche becoming a part of Volkswagen's growing empire. Volkswagen had emerged stronger than ever, but as they soared to new heights, a dark secret was brewing beneath the surface, one that would lead to one of the biggest scandals in automotive history. In 2015, Volkswagen was caught in a massive emissions scandal. It was revealed that the company had installed cheating software in millions of diesel cars to pass emissions tests while releasing far more pollution than allowed by law. The world was stunned as the company faced global investigations, legal battles, and massive financial penalties. The fallout from the scandal was immense. Volkswagen's reputation was shattered, and the company was forced to recall millions of cars. But despite the scandal, Volkswagen managed to survive, and in the years that followed, the company made significant efforts to rebuild trust, investing heavily in electric vehicles and striving to become a leader in sustainable transportation. Today, Volkswagen stands as a global leader in the automotive industry. Its story, from a Nazi-era project to a scandal that rocked the world, shows how a brand can rise, fall, and rise again. Through decades of triumphs and tribulations, Volkswagen has become a symbol of resilience, innovation, and the complicated nature of history. As the new year approaches, there's a natural excitement in the air. We all get those big, bold ideas, goals, dreams, plans. But let's be honest, that excitement can fade. So, how do we turn those plans into reality? It's simple, really. Discipline. But before you think it's all about perfection, let me share a secret. It's the small steps that matter the most. You don't have to have everything figured out right away. In fact, you can start with something as simple as showing up for yourself every single day. Think of discipline like planting seeds. It doesn't always seem like much at first, but over time, those little actions you take will grow into something beautiful. It's those tiny, everyday choices that build momentum. Each step, no matter how small, gets you closer to the life you want. So don't stress about the big picture right now. Focus on today. What is one thing you can do today to get closer to your goal? Maybe it's setting aside 10 minutes to work on something that matters, or saying no to a bad habit that's been holding you back. Start there, because each of those small actions will add up to something much bigger. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. You don't need to take giant leaps, just steady steps forward. The beauty of discipline is that it helps you build trust with yourself. And with each small victory, you'll feel stronger, more capable. And if you want to stay on track and keep that fire burning, I'd love for you to join us on this journey. Subscribe to this channel, and let's make this year the one where we turn our dreams into action together.